Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson, we got Ty, and we are here to cover OU's 7th win this season. A 52-31, just comfortable victory over the TCU Horned Frogs. If we're talking like just throughout Western Carolina, this is the most complete the Sooners have looked. But with that being said, there are still some things to pick at. There's still some notes to take, and this team still has improvements to make. But we gotta get on with the biggest point of the day, and that is Caleb Williams. We got Caleb. I don't know what else there is to say. Throughout the entire week, we kind of thought it was going to be Caleb. After what we saw against Texas, we all kind of figured it should be Caleb, and he went out and had a pretty remarkable first performance. 18 for 23, 295 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, and, of course, several pretty impressive runs, as well as a just insane 41-yard scamper for a touchdown. So, Jameson, did Caleb impress you? Did this debut performance, excite you as much as you thought it might have?
Yeah, it did, but there's a couple of things he still needs to work on. But I'm just going to say this before I go any farther. How about Lincoln Riley putting Spencer out with the first team in the warm-ups? He having his helmet on after we were going to receive on the first drive. He was ready to go, and as soon as they kicked it, he put on a white hat and didn't even touch his helmet for the rest of the game. Absolute joke. But let's talk about Caleb. I think that there's a couple of things. If you want to play, yes, he had a great game. He was making the right reads. He was throwing it to the right guys. But let me just say the other end of it first, and we can talk about all the good things after that too. While Spencer didn't throw to the guys down the field that we wanted him to, Caleb was just about a second late on a lot of his throws, if y'all noticed this. He still got it to where he caught it, but he was underthrowing and throwing them a little late, which could hurt down the line when we play a more legitimate defense. TCU's defense has plenty of holes in it. So that's just one thing. I mean, did y'all notice that as well?
Yeah. No, there were some timing or power issues for sure that came up that really they didn't look too different to last week, too. I know we were super high on it, but I do remember that a couple times a couple of us mentioned that there was a lot of luck involved in some of his big plays last week with Texas and then some this week as well. So there are definitely some things to be concerned about, but at the same time, truly is a true freshman and hasn't played really in a long time. So I'm really happy with where we are.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely the true freshman definitely popped through in moments. It wasn't a polished, beautiful, perfect performance by any means, but what it was outstanding and impressive. And his high moments were just remarkably high, but he definitely has a ways to go. He's not a finished product yet, and I think that is the most exciting thing about last night.
Yeah, and turning that, like you said, exactly what I was going to say. You turned it on a positive. There are so many things to make him even better. He played, near perfect game. 4 touchdowns with only 5 incompletions. That's great. And there's a lot of things that we think he can do to get better. And like we said last week, how much of the playbook was open for him to begin with? That we thought that he was going to kind of be babied a little bit. I don't think he was babied that hard. But as he starts playing more first-team reps with those guys and gets big relationships with some of his wide receivers, it should only get better, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's experience is not the most important thing in the world because you could be Jake Fromm and stay there forever. But, a better quarterback like Justin Fields could be on your roster. Play Justin Fields. Don't play Jake Fromm. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that's important, and with time, with getting to know the playbook, with getting the timing of everyone's, the first teamers' routes, I'm with you. I think that'll be impressive. And look, you got Kansas next week, you got Texas Tech next week, and then a bye week before a crazy November. Thankfully, there's some time to get it figured out.
Yeah, and I will say one of the things you heard the TV announcers also touch on was, initially that sort of apprehension for it being his first start, which, we got into a little debate on that on the Picks pod last week, but I just didn't, I don't know that it's really that much of a difference comparing, his first start against TCU versus, like we talked about, again, just to rehash old things, I guess, but it was a much higher pressure situation, that he jumped right into. And here he was in his first start ever and did great again. So I think those concerns, I wouldn't really have any concerns there, and I don't think anyone else should. There's definitely some issues that are going to come up down the road for sure. It's just going to happen. And there's going to be some stumbling blocks, but I think we are really, really solid from where we're starting now to his sort of upside and just the impact he has on the team, even when mistakes are made, which, we're going to see eventually. But
yeah, it's all stuff about timing and feel for the game. I feel like were some of the bigger issues. He held onto the ball a little bit too long at times, looking for the right read. It took a little bit to, you could tell he was trying to get a feel for it, the speed of the game compared to, look, I'm sure Gonzaga Preparatory School out in the East Coast was a very good school and had a lot of, some pretty high level games. He's obviously played in state championships, had a remarkable touchdown to win one of them. But it's a totally different beast when you enter college football, and that speed. It's one thing when you're riding on adrenaline. It's another one where you just have to do it every week. But here's the thing: that talent is just sheerly impressive. You have to keep playing him, and we saw that on that touchdown run of his was just remarkable. His shiftiness, his running ability is. That adds a degree to your offense that you haven't seen since Kyler Murray.
Yeah, we haven't had big play ability, I feel like, this whole season until Caleb Williams just took the keys. I feel like Caleb is good for one run every single game. Kind of like what you said, what was with Kyler Murray, completely different running styles, but Caleb finds a way to break tackles and get into open space. And another thing you said, Bobby, that I think that we really need to harp on here is, yes, Caleb was taking a little time to make his reads and make the correct read in the passing game. But listen, we just said he's making reads. That is a thing Spencer has been lacking to do this whole season. We should be thankful that we have a quarterback going throughout his reads and finding the right receiver, even if he is a half second to a second short. Because whenever Spencer's first read and second read isn't there, he's either airmailing Austin Stogner or he's thrown into triple coverage.
Yeah, a sack is better 100 times out of 100 to throwing a pick, which is something that Spencer would do if he got panicky.
Well, so, I also want to point out, not to sort of beat a dead horse or kick someone while they're down, but I think it's fairly reasonable to say that at least college level, or at least in this system, we've sort of seen the peak of Spencer Rattler or the plateau, and that was one of the big critiques was he wasn't necessarily that bad this season. He just hadn't improved at all, which sort of indicates, that he's maybe at his peak, because I understand the whole transfer quarterback, Lincoln Riley argument, but both of those guys, Hurts exempted because he was here for a year, but Baker and Kyler both had development during their time at OU. So Lincoln Riley can, to some extent, develop quarterbacks. So I think the big thing with Caleb is we point out all these issues, and obviously, we're going to find out if that's true later on down the road, but I don't really think that there's much potential for improvement, at least in this system, for Rattler anymore, whereas Caleb Williams, at least on paper, has infinite potential for improvement, which is nice because that's, it's more of an investment type thing at that point.
And for me, what Caleb does is he unlocks so much for this offense and the wide receivers. You saw a big game out of Mike Woods. We saw a massive game out of Jaden Hazelwood, who I did not believe this stat until I actually looked it up last night, and someone told me. I was shocked. That was his first ever FBS touchdown last night. His previous touchdowns came against South Dakota and Western Carolina this year. That shocked me. And Caleb's ability to unlock these players who have kind of faded into the background. Marvin Mims was a guy we've been waiting for to have a big game. Didn't have as big of a game as he did against Texas, but still, 56 yards on 2 catches, not bad. It changes everything if you can get the most out of your talent, which is something. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, I'm with you, Ty. You don't want to kick Spencer while he's down, but if you can unlock that, if you can really, really unlock that, take it to the next level, then you'd absolutely do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how he grows for the rest of the season because he has plenty of room to grow. But our ceiling, it seems like it is a lot higher right now. So as OU fans, we all feel pretty optimistic right now, feel a lot better. And I don't feel like I did at the beginning of the season where I just felt like, you know what, we're winning, but I'm not happy. Now I feel pretty happy with our wins. But let's talk about something that's not making me happy, and that's the defense. And there is a lot of things to be fixed with the defense, especially in the secondary. But the defensive line, did y'all notice the defensive line this game kind of gave me, K-State vibes where they just kind of got handled by TCU's offensive line. We did not get that much pressure. I thought that we'd be at least, working after Max Duggan because allegedly there's rumors, and I don't know how legitimate this is, but, Max Duggan was questionable coming into this game. And some people on TCU boards and some people that I know told me that he had a fracture in his foot. Obviously, he was running just fine around, but these can be tiny little hairline fractures in your foot that can still limit you with pain, but you can still run. All in all, he wasn't healthy coming into this game. You'd think our D-line would eat in that situation, but we got handled pretty decently on that line.
Yeah, and I think you got to give a lot of props to the TCU line. We talked about it with Blake in our TCU preview last week, but and Jameson, you mentioned it. They were awful last year. The steps they made, that's one of the better lines we'll see in the Big 12 this year. I think the biggest thing right there was the line play was really good, and the D line just couldn't break through, which is definitely a point of frustration for sure.
Yeah, and I think part of it, not to steer it away from OU too much, but like we've kind of been talking about, the storylines are so big in college football, and it's one of the things I think we all love about it. And it's kind of been almost forgotten because there's so many other storylines around college football this season, and OU even specifically this season is this whole move to the SEC thing. And I think these teams that we're playing still haven't forgotten it. And OU's that team, because we've been on top, everybody wants to attack the guy on top, and the guy on top can only move, one way, and that's down. So we always get everyone's best shot. We always get everyone's best game plan, best, everything. So these are the games for OU, that have always been such a trap game for OU because we come in, knowing that we're unequivocally the best in the conference, but we'll relax. And then, we don't want to burn our whole playbook. We don't want to burn guys out. And then other teams, this is their, 1 or 2 shots a season to really make a mark when they're on big TV and can do that. So I think props to TCU more than anything else, because we've seen good stuff from the D line. So hopefully, and I'm saying this because hopefully, what we saw was just a really stellar performance and plan from TCU and not necessarily an indicator of a problem with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. They handled Nick Benino really well, which, a guy that at least can push Max Duggan out of the pocket. And, Max Duggan sometimes does better outside of the pocket, but you want pressure, obviously, on the quarterbacks. And I think that we also really would be remiss not to talk about Zach Evans being out, because that should make it where our D-line and pass rush should have been even stronger, that their running game wasn't, to the capability that they could be. Blake said in the TCU preview that Zach Evans was the biggest key, and he's their best player, and they get him the ball a lot, and he wasn't even playing. And it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get more pressure on Max Duggan and kind of see our defense really strangle him and take control of the game whenever they're their keystone guys out.
Yeah, I mean, they were absolutely bailed out by the Zach Evans injury because it could have been a lot messier. DeMarcado and Miller are not bad running backs, but they're not Zach Evans. That guy is, not Bijan Robinson level like explosive, but like
step down.
Yeah, he's
Williams?
the great value Bijan
Puka.
Robinson.
So Puka Williams.
Puka Williams. Yeah, I guess he's kind of Puka-ish, but I mean that's the thing is I've said this all season long. The defensive line changes everything for the entire defense down the line, just across the board, because our secondary right now is not good enough to just straight up guard you one-on-one. And we saw that where Quentin Johnson, the TCU wide receiver who we thought might actually be out, absolutely roasted us, because if you give him too much time back there, that speed D is not designed to just like hold you. And you know, when they have all day, you have things like just what we saw on Saturday night, which was just a tough performance from the secondary across the board. So the D-line, it starts with the D-line though. They got to be better. They have to be immaculate.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where there was a little bit too much time to go through progressions and to make decisions on the opponent's side, which is, you know, even if you have the best secondary players, you know, out there, that can start to cause problems. So,
Jameson, what did you think? Yeah, I fully agree, Ty, though. It is an issue. But, Jameson, what did you think of Quentin Johnson's performance against OU? I thought it was, I mean, just typical OU, giant wide receiver, just wrecking you. And it was signified no better than that touchdown he had in the corner where I can't remember which corner had the ball in his hands. He just ripped it up.
It was Josh Eaton.
Is Josh Eaton, then gave him the Russell Westbrook kind of a little too small gesture. That was tough to watch, wasn't it?
That was, but I'll say this, you know, we had a very tough situation, which was even tougher than it already had to be in the secondary. You know, DJ Graham goes down, and I think he got a concussion, was on street clothes for the majority of the games, only played like 13 snaps. And then we playing Billy Bowman, who, first of all, he is a true freshman starting nickelback on this team. And we said, let's send our true freshman who's already just now learning like the nickelback, was hurt for a little bit this year, and then move him over to cornerback and try to guard, you know, a guy and Quentin Johnson and, you know, Max Duggan, a throwing quarterback, has been here for a while. Like, that is a really, really tough position to be in. So there's a couple of things to point your fingers at. You know, Jaden Davis also was just same old crap. Latrell McCutcheon overall looked pretty decent from whenever he played. He didn't get thrown out too much in his limited snaps, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, even though Josh Eaton got, you know, stolen that ball at the end, there were a couple things where it's like I'd rather see him get some more snaps, you know, and play some of our younger guys that we recruited, these long 6'2" guys that were speed D, and we've been, you know, harping on this whole time, but have been on the end of the bench, and Alex Grinch refuses to play. Give them some shine, because Jaden Davis ain't cutting it, and DJ Graham's hurt.
Yeah, and I prefer that to moving Bowman to cornerback, because it kind of gives me like this reverse feeling of the Buki situation. I feel like they played him out of position, and that was a disaster. And look, there were a lot of issues with Buki outside of where he was positioned, but I feel like the coaching staff never really gave him a chance to succeed in that front, just because they immediately started him out, putting him in the wrong spot. And I am I wrong to kind of worry about them doing the same thing with Bowman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really am worried. I do not want him at outside cornerback, even though how slim we are, it's just not worth it. I understand Justin Broyles is playing pretty decent comparative to the other guys, but Billy Bowman's a true freshman, and we want him to be that dog and be like really aggressive. But I don't want him to have to worry about learning a completely new position as a true freshman. Like, we were talking about this in the preseason. You know, we were like, what should we do with Billy? And you were like talking about it, Bobby. Should we play him more and get him more snaps elsewhere? No, I did not want that. I want him in one place and one place only, and perfect your craft. I mean, like, do you agree with me, Ty, on this?
Yeah, no, I do. So on one hand, you know, I really like the idea of, if we're already struggling, you know, and we have young guys, because ultimately there's not going to be some positive externalities to throwing him out there, you know, even if that's not the position that he's best in. You know, maybe we pull him back to his other position and at least he got some reps. So on one hand, I like the idea of let's just get guys experience, get them out there, and let's just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. If we're already struggling, which we really are in the secondary. But on the other hand, yeah, like you said, it's not, it's like on the quarterback side with throwing, balls into triple coverage or throwing man on man, stuff where you're going to let your guy go fight for it. There are things that are more likely to succeed and more reasonable, and you can only really expect reasonable things out of reasonable likelihood. So, I would hate to see a guy get burned by the coaching staff in terms of not setting him up to succeed. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that take having to do with Buki. I think that being 5'6" was the bigger issue.
Again, I was saying there are other issues for sure,
but yeah, you never know.
I think it was similar to that of, putting Woody Washington. I mean, we had to, versus LSU in Atlanta. Like, he was a very talented guy, and we knew that, but we just threw him into the fire. And even though he looked pretty decent, he got burned on a couple times, and that's just, it sucked for him. We felt pretty desperate with Billy Bowman, so we said, screw it. Maybe we can be onto something by putting one of our best defensive backs at a position of need whenever Broyles has been doing decently as a backup to Billy whenever the backups at cornerback weren't working. But at the same time, you don't want to screw over and, spoil one of your one shining moments in the defensive backs to where it would get even worse if his confidence goes down because he's just getting burned all the time at a position he still doesn't know.
And, well, that's my thing is I liked the idea of moving him around, but I like that idea, like, when we're dealing with Western Carolina and Nebraska and Tulane. Yes. You can't start doing that 7 games into the season because, believe it or not, I know time flies pretty fast, folks. We're about to enter week freaking 8. We're the double digits are knocking on our door here. We're in the meat of this season. You can't go to Baskin Robbins, already have your order, and then just start going back and taking samples again. That's just going to end up poorly for everyone. So you can't just start moving them around.
Have you done this before?
I don't know. I can't do it again because I've been banned from my local Baskin Robbins.
This is like the time I went to Whataburger at like 2 a.m. and ordered 15 jalapeno cheddar biscuits, and the person kept telling me, it's just the biscuit, right? Which I thought meant just not the meal. I thought it meant it wasn't coming with the little potato wedges, but it turns out it was just the biscuit.
No meat inside, just a biscuit.
No, just the biscuit. Yeah.
How was that?
I think you were with me at the time.
I probably was. I just don't remember.
I think the only reason I remember is because it was so dry, and I got to 3 and then was dying in the trunk of the pilot.
Well, let me tell you something.
Right.
That might be your body just telling you something because you only order biscuits in their jalapeno. That makes you want to drink a lot of water at 2 a.m. And so you probably felt pretty decent in the morning, I'd guess.
Well, you got the dry biscuit and you got the jalapeno heat, so that definitely would. That is a recipe for a desperate need for hydration.
What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Let's talk about Jaden
the secondary. Maybe they're dehydrated.
Yeah, maybe they are. I don't know. We need to check their pH levels. Wait, do we have championship level hydration? Do we have a chart available? Who's tracking this information? I'm just saying. Can we sneak into the facility to see if we have a P chart anywhere?
I'm very confused where this
I'm
is
sure
going
that
right
I'm
now.
sure we can get a daily reporter with binoculars to go start scoping out every bathroom on campus and checking the players' pee colors.
Man, how
I
quickly
will not be participating in that one.
How quickly we forget about our Tom Herman jokes. That makes me sad.
I didn't even catch on to it. So I didn't even see it. Wow.
Oh no, it's okay. But you're right, Jameson. Let's talk about Jaden Hazelwood.
We've got better. We've got Coach O jokes coming.
Oh God, man, that guy just fell off a bridge. Oh. Anyways, Jaden Hazelwood, often considered, I think, for most of us to be one of the more overrated players on the team. He finally showed up and had a hell of a game. Is this matchup with Caleb Williams Was this a flash in the pan, or should we expect to see more of this? What do you think, Jameson?
I think Jaden Hazelwood is a very good touchdown threat kind of guy. Do I think he's a wide receiver one? No, but I think that a quarterback is willing to make those, back shoulder passes or go up and get them, or I'm not 100% open, but I'm going to throw it and I'm going to let my guy go get it. That's what Jaden Hazelwood needs in a quarterback, and that's just not what Spencer was in a quarterback. Like what we were saying, Spencer went to his first read and he wouldn't want to let his players play to their strengths. Those Marvin Mims throws that Caleb Williams had in the Texas game shows to that. He will throw it up and he says, I know that my wide receiver is better than the defensive back. That's what you got to do with Jaden, and him having 3 touchdowns shows to it. I think that he's going to do a lot better for the rest of this season. I think he's our wide receiver one? No. But I think that it's clear that our wide receiving room has 3 very valuable players that are going to be, doing a lot better with the quarterback who believes in them.
Yeah, no, and it's a matter of, trying to think of a good way to put this, but I think that Williams, like we talked about in the Texas recap with Mims, is more able to fully, I don't want to use enable again, but he is more able to fully complement the skill sets that our receivers have by trusting them more and going through his progressions and maybe just having a better innate understanding of the game, maybe even, because you can sit there and have all sorts of hard stats and somebody might not be as good, but you have those sort of things that can't be measured yet, at least maybe with AI or machine learning or something. But those leadership qualities, especially in a quarterback, and then those just understanding of the game qualities. And I think when we talk about Williams being more trusting, maybe he's just more willing to take risks because he's less experienced, and he's throwing those balls up that our guys are able to compete for. But if that is the case, that ultimately might be a misinformed decision, but it's not a bad decision, because when we're talking about games like TCU or even Texas to some extent, or really anything prior to the postseason with OU, we have just the pure athletes where we can throw up those 50-50 balls and trust that in a lot of cases, Jaden Hazelwood or Marvin Mims or whoever else is going to come down with it, just because we have a better athlete and there's such a bigger sort of spectrum that athlete skills are on in college compared to the NFL. So however we're coming to that decision as of right now in Big 12 play especially, those are generally the right decisions to make.
I'd agree with that.
Definitely. I think also it's another big key to talk about in this passing system with Jaden Hazelwood. He's been a guy who's been grinding. We were worried, like, just kind of, his personality. It seems like would he get kind of pissed off in the system that he's not getting enough targets, with Spencer Rattler, and is he going to be disgruntled and is he not going to buy in? But he, as Wale said on Twitter, he's been grinding, he's been blocking, and now it's time to look at him. And I think that the whole team is going to benefit from Spencer not being our quarterback and Caleb being in. We said it during the Texas game. He makes everyone better just because their mood overall, he's a good leader and he puts them in positions to succeed. So overall, everyone should be happy. Jaden Hazelwood had a great game and he deserved it. And I think that is just great for his mood because, he's the type of guy to where if he gets confident and he says, I got 3 touchdowns, I can't be stopped. He's going to get that kind of alpha dog mentality. And anytime you have a player who can do that, that's always going to be positive.
Absolutely. And, I gotta say, is Wale like an OU fan? Like, I don't get the Hazelwood connection. I could definitely understand it if he was watching because of Caleb Williams, because Wale is like a DC guy for sure. Like, maybe that could be a connection. But the Hazelwood love was kind of out of left field.
Yeah, I don't know the connection there because isn't like Wale like a big Philadelphia kind of sports fan? So like if he was like an Atlanta rapper, it makes sense. But I don't know. I mean, I think Jaden Hazelwood, just the way he carries himself, and the way he was in high school, in the social media presence, it seems like a guy that would make friends with celebrities, just because he seems like kind of a badass, and he just. bad comparison, but I just feel like he carries himself similar to way. No, I'm not going to say that. I think that's a bad comparison. I'm going to drop it. I'm just going to say.
Were you gonna say
I was
CeeDee
gonna.
Lamb?
I was gonna. No, I was not. No, he's not like CeeDee Lamb. I was gonna. I don't like this one. I was gonna say before Cam Newton got a bad rap, because he's got a bad rap right now. And don't talk about all the vaccine stuff. That's completely different. I'm talking about Cam Newton whenever he was really good and the way he carried himself. I feel like Jaden carries himself in the same way.
Before the
But
car accident.
I did not want to say any. Yes. I did not want to say
People don't talk
anything
about that. He's get something happens.
Look, at least Jaden's not tweeting in weird characters yet, so he's not quite there yet for sure.
But Jaden's like, like he talks about he like worships like Egyptian gods and stuff. He's just a little bit different, and
Nice.
it's just a little bit different. But he carries himself with the confidence and a swag that I just feel like that big time celebrities would be attracted to be a fan of him.
Yeah.
No, and I will say, to sort of reel the conversation back in a little bit, although I love where we were going. I've been very critical of Hazelwood on the podcast, and then just with my Schooner takes in our group chat and stuff. But this game, I was very impressed, not just by the pure stats and everything else, but I saw, again, back to those sort of unmeasurable elements right now. I saw a true WR1 on this team, which prior to now, you could make arguments for Hazelwood most probably, and much less so for some other guys. But I don't think we had a clear WR1 on the team until just now, which I think is really important going forward because we've established our QB1 firmly, pun intended there, at Spencer. We've established our RB1 very firmly with Kennedy Brooks, who has really started to show that gap between him and Eric Gray. And now we've established our WR1. And those are things that when we look at Lincoln Riley and OU offenses of the past, those were things that were never really in question. And that's, I think, might be something that the quarterback drama is overshadowing, is the fact that prior to this week and then last week, we really didn't have a firm RB1, really, and we definitely didn't have a firm WR1. So those two things also coming together are much less noticeable. There's not the media catchy, inside Hollywood super drama there, like the media is trying to make with the quarterbacks. Who knows what's going on behind closed doors? But I think those two things are also, I would argue, equally as important as figuring out QB1. That's going to help us a lot going forward.
Yeah, I think that is a huge thing to say. Just putting it simply, I gave me great, pretty much just rehashing what you said. We've developed an identity because we're finding players that are going into their roles. We don't have to have a QB1. I mean, we do have to have a QB1. We do not have to have a wide receiver one, but it's very nice to have one. So I think having an identity is extremely key, and that's a great point, Ty.
Yeah, especially having a guy who's like that go-to touchdown getter, because Stockner has not been that this year at all. Did he even played it? I don't think he played.
He played. No, he
played. He didn't. He just didn't.
But that's the
ever
thing
since
with
that injury, it's tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough. That's just kind of hard to come back from. So I think that's a big thing. But also we talk about wide receiver ones. We talked about Mims a little bit. But shout out to my guy Mike Woods. He had another really good game. I really like him, and I feel like he always gets overshadowed when we talk about OU's wide receiving core. Kid makes some damn good, really big plays. He's probably been the most consistent guy this entire season. So I just had to give a little shout out to my guy Mike Woods.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For sure.
That's what I was going to say, is that having those other pieces fall into play at quarterback and running back and everything else, even if you don't have a guy like Caleb Williams who's really going through progressions and stretching it out, will ultimately help everyone else as well, just by, taking the heat off of them or giving them opportunities to have, mistakes made where they can be open.
Yeah. Let's talk about, we've talked a lot about the air. Let's talk about the ground a little bit. Another really good performance for Kennedy Brooks, who has very definitively established himself as a bell cow type of back. 20 carries, 153 yards, average of 7.7, a touchdown, and an awesome 45-yard run. Compare that to Eric Gray's 6 carries. I mean, come on. It's Brooks is the guy, 100%. Jameson, how about Brooks? We see that he took his Texas play, moved it over to yet another week. Do we think we're going to see this going forward?
Yeah, I think so. He just seems like a guy. He's gotten back into the groove. We were a little bit worried into the preseason and the beginning of the season that maybe he might not be the number one guy just because taking that year off, being a year off from football, it's really tough, and your muscles aren't ready for it, and it's just like you're very susceptible to get hurt, too, because the body loves muscle recognition. But I think that we also would be remiss, not to talk about, there's so much we can talk about Kennedy. We've already kind of, talked about in the past. It's just, he's that guy. He's an RB1. There's no doubt about it. But the offensive line, the way they blocked from him in the run scheme was pretty good these past 2 weeks. And did y'all notice, I don't know what exactly is going on at right tackle, but Tyrese Robinson did not play the majority of that game. Eric Swinson was playing that right tackle, and he looked a lot better than Mr. Short Arm Tyrese.
Tyrese, man, he's got those little T-Rex arms. It's unfortunate, but yeah, no, I agree. I think the line is starting to figure it out, and maybe that's something we, before the preseason even started, we should have been like, look, this might take some time to figure out because it's a new line, a new leader in terms of you don't have Creed back there anymore, and yeah, it's starting to finally look like an Oklahoma line, which is just such a relief. It changes so much for OU going forward. So I'm loving it. The scheme's working. This team is starting to kind of figure out who they are, and the O-line has been the biggest sign of that, I think, is just incremental. That it looks like a totally different line than the one we saw against Tulane or Nebraska. So I'm pretty happy with the improvement there.
Yeah, and Andrew Rame had a better game too. You can notice that he didn't throw a snap into freaking Nevada or something like he did a little bit better this and Caleb was able to compose himself. Yeah, but going back to Tyrese Robinson, it just I feel like there has been a lot of good moments from him, but I just think he's a guard, and moving him out to tackle is just such a bummer. I think that having him at that right guard where he was, and if we would have trained Wanya Morris more at that right tackle position, and then or Swinson there, I just feel like that would have been a better thing. But we've sent Wanya all over the place, and he still hasn't really gotten the beat him both system. But overall, we should be very happy with it. We still have some vices to ourselves on this offensive line, but when your offense is producing the way that we are, and we're getting kind of vibes of old OU vibes, it's kind of weird to say this. Old OU vibes does not mean the wishbone. Means the I score more points than you, and I don't care what my defense does. OU, I'm getting vibes of that now.
Yeah. No, and you actually, you went to the game, so. Later on, near the end of the game, Kirk Herbstreit actually said that on air, just sort of spontaneously. He was like, "Oh, this looks like OU. Like they have not looked like what." He mentioned the Texas game. Obviously, they were there for that with game day. But he said, that sort of second half against Texas, and then all day the other day. Oh, this is OU. Here they are. So I think that's a really accurate take if some of the best in the business are also saying it. That's probably where you got it from.
I didn't. I did not rewatch the game. I'm just an absolute genius like Kirk.
Of course. Yeah, well, I mean,
great success.
To be fair, I also did tweet after our second touchdown, a monster about to come alive again, and they immediately went pretty cold. But that third quarter right there, really exemplified classic OU offense, and I kind of love it. They had the first half was a little rusty at points, but I think they're starting to gel. And look, we've seen a lot of improvement in the past 7 weeks. I cannot wait to see what we do with the next 5. It's going to be really, really exciting to see where this team ends up, and let's just hope it's an air of improvement, and there's no we don't, as Gary would say, take a step back.
Yeah, how about them playing that during the game, Bobby? I'm sure that you got an absolute kick from that. Did they get permission from Gary to play that?
It's public information. I'm sure they probably have like a sweeping licensing deal, and we're
Yeah, I don't
able to
think
do
they
it.
have
You know,
to.
I mean, you don't have to like. I don't have to ask Bon Jovi to play a song. You know,
I
if
guess
you're
I don't
PA.
know how that stuff works.
I don't know. Gary still probably would find a way to attempt to sue us, even though I don't think he I don't think he knows how the law works, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That is
Anyways,
master level trolling by OU.
it was great. I loved it, and no one else in my section knew what was going on, but I had a great time. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I will say, just sort of wrapping up the. Well, I don't know if we're wrapping up or not. Honestly,
One more question after this. I got. For
Yeah,
y'all.
but I will say it seems to me like obviously there's the whole avoiding all the controversy, all the storylines that are out there. It very much seems to me from the games I've been to and the games I've seen on TV that OU fans at the games are much more organized and sort of actively engaged with the games than years previously. Like you're hearing all sorts of like chants and stuff. Like I don't really remember a lot of really anything and besides just generic cheering. And now it seems like the OU fan base is a lot more engaged this year. So I think maybe that's another positive externality of this sort of quarterback drama thing that everyone got really addicted to, just yelling things in unison. And now we're sort of on that train. I don't know if you guys have noticed that or not.
I think it's I agree. The crowd does seem a little bit more energized. You felt it in pregame, you felt it across the game, and I think partially some of it is because we've had so much adversity throughout the season. There's not that complacency. There's not that we're just gonna go in and blow everyone out vibe that we've had in years past. So I think everyone's like excited to actually see each game, and I think the energy is there. I think they're engaged, and I feel like a lot of maybe some of it was the post Texas energy. Everyone's a little fired up after Texas usually, but I think this season has just had people more tuned in because you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it didn't hurt at all that everyone's pumped up for Caleb. They finally got what they wanted, and then he came out, started, and then played well. But I think this is a really big time question to ask, and I think it's a huge talking point. A lot of people are wondering about it, speculating, even though it doesn't really directly relate to our team right now. But what is the move for Spencer Rattler moving forward? Yes, we pretty much figured out that, he cleaned out his locker, but then he came back because Lincoln made comments saying like, you better, if you leave in the middle, I know there's coaches that aren't going to like that and take you in the transfer portal. So what is Spencer going to do after this season, assuming he doesn't come in and, Caleb gets hurt or something and Spencer comes in, plays really well and earns himself a draft stock? Like, where could Spencer transfer to and would be a good position for him?
I mean, it's tough because I feel like a lot of teams could improve their quarterbacking if they added Spencer Rattler. Just because Caleb Williams is a way better quarterback. Honestly, there's a chance he might be the best quarterback in college football right now. You do not know. He's definitely the hottest one right now in terms of his ability right now. A lot of teams could use Spencer Rattler, and it's hard to think about spots that could use him more than. I mean, I know we've seen there's like a comment about Texas A&M. Someone dropped out there. Could also maybe see a USC move. Depending on what head coach goes out there. Personally, I hope he follows in the footsteps of his QB1 star and goes to of his fellow QB1 star Tate Martell and goes to Miami, because that clearly won't end poorly at all. So just a couple ideas, but really anywhere could use them.
Yeah, I think I haven't really dug into specific schools and their needs for quarterbacks. Obviously, the NFL thing is on the table, and I think there is a fair argument that maybe he doesn't even go in this next draft. Maybe he just sits out a year and trains, because there is such a whole even in brand name and name recognition, even in the NFL, can be such a factor. That's the only reason Tim Tebow was ever relevant beyond his first year in the NFL. So you definitely have things like that. So maybe he could even sit out a whole year and just train and work with different guys, work with different quarterbacks, hire different trainers, and just take an extended sort of leave of absence and in development. And I say that because there is a risk that, he decides to go to another college program and continues to underperform and just shoots himself in the foot metaphorically, or there is the risk, that he goes to the NFL and just doesn't have that development. He's coming off a bad, storyline, bad mental state, and doesn't succeed. So who knows? Who knows what the guy's ceiling is, because Lincoln Riley is not the, this sort of god of quarterback development. He's not the, he's not the Nick Saban of quarterback development, or he might be, but he's not someone that's going to go and Spencer Rattler very well could be one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played college football. Maybe he just doesn't fit with Lincoln Riley and Lincoln Riley's system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
James, I would just make a quick point here before we kick it to you. My thing with Rattler, I mean, if you look at the schematics, if you look at the mechanics, all of that's great. So an extra year of training, I don't know what that's going to do for him.
Yeah.
He needs game experience, and that the only way you could get that is by actually being in a game. Elite 11, all this stuff, all of the things that have made him, the hype monster he is, are not what makes a good quarterback. He doesn't have the reads. He doesn't have the feel for the game. That is his issue. So wherever he goes, he's got to. I think he has to play. I think the NFL's off the table. I think sitting out and training might be off the table as well. Jameson?
Yeah, I do not think that he's going to go to the NFL, because I know that he believes in himself to be a first-round kind of guy, and he's not that right now, because no one wants an unproven quarterback. I understand people reach for quarterbacks, but you got to remember, like, Lamar Jackson almost didn't get drafted in the first round. So just put that in the back of your head. Also, like I don't know what's sitting out a year. Like, he is at, I don't know how much lower he can get. He can definitely, he can get a little bit lower with like his public view right now, but he's a meme right now. People, like making fun of people like declining, and they're like, oh, they're pulling a Spencer Rattler. Like, people around the nation know this story and know that he is completely declined. I think that, I agree Texas A&M would be an interesting spot for him, with Haynes King getting injured. He'd come in, fight for that job. What about like an Oregon? I wouldn't say like a USC, just because it's just too hectic, and you don't want a guy that's already kind of I said Texas A&M, but I'm thinking of like good coaches, and Oregon's got a stellar coach up there, and USC system is just too volatile where I just don't think that would work. But Oregon and Texas A&M make the most sense for me because they have needs at that position, and have a pretty decent amount of stuff around them. Texas A&M is going to have a lot of guys leave in this draft. That would definitely have helped them. I guarantee you, whatever the Texas A&M tight end's name is, the best tight end in college right now. I'm completely blanking on his name. But yeah, he just can't go to the pros. He needs to go to somewhere else because his image can't get much lower.
If we're talking about, staying at college, which I do think is the most likely thing. I think he needs somewhere that's Power 5, but also a decently sized brand, like an A&M, like an Oregon, or something else. But I think he also needs somewhere where he can succeed, but they're not too successful. Like he doesn't need to go somewhere, and I don't think this is probable at this point, but he doesn't need to go somewhere where if they're not winning, more than 8 games a season, he's going to be blamed for it. So I think the Pac as a whole is probably a pretty appealing, spot. Maybe UCLA, I think this is around DTY's last year, is it not? So I don't know what their state is, but he's from Phoenix, so the Pac, might be a really good fit for him to take a year and sort of be the bigger fish in a smaller pond and move his draft stock up and make more money and continue to rob people on NIL deals.
I think I've actually figured out the perfect spot for him. and it's really two spots. And I think both of y'all will be interested. Egg Bowl Spencer Rattler. Either
Egg
put it,
Bowl.
either
Oh,
stick
no.
him, either stick him with Lane
Well,
Kiffin
he would
after.
lose the quarterback battle at Ole Miss.
Well, here's the thing. Matt
Matt,
Corral's going into the league. He's a junior. He will definitely get drafted first round. I would say
Absolutely.
So Corral gone. You're there with Lane Kiffin.
I'm interested.
Wild times.
I'm
Or
interested.
you go with Mike Leach, who obviously has a great track record with the spread offense. I don't know their quarterback situation as well, but just the idea of Mike Leach and Spencer Rattler together makes me very excited, and I think that'd be very fun.
I just don't think he'd go the SEC. He's too soft.
I don't
for
think
it.
the SEC is the answer.
No, but also just imagine Spencer Rattler in an Egg Bowl. I want it.
Honestly, no, you're on to something. I think that would be extremely fun. But yeah, I just wanted to put that question out there because, whenever you put that white hat on the sideline, that he's going to be there just in case, break in case of use because, we make jokes about Ralph Rucker all the time, but if Caleb goes down, we need Spencer and we need him bad. And this team still has a relatively high ceiling if Spencer is our starting quarterback. But he knows that if he sits out and he quits on us, that his options are going to be constricted.
What about
where it could go?
What about this? Think about the storyline potential here. Spencer Rattler, the Phoenix rising from the fire like Dumbledore, undefeated team, up and coming team, chance to make it or break it. Spencer Rattler as the starting quarterback, the one that will bring them to greatness at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
Yes.
That would be so weird.
That would be wild. Here's the thing: you're talking storylines, like chance for greatness. What about the perfect chance for revenge? Tennessee, link up with Josh Heupel. Him and Heupel together. Josh Heupel. His little. We've seen him dress up as Batman. Maybe he's dressed up as Palpatine. He's like, look. I know how it feels to be replaced by someone better than you at Oklahoma, but you know what? We're going to show them who's boss. And he takes him under his wing, and there you go. Spencer Rattler and Josh Heupel.
This is quite a villain story. That's like the villain to the Incredibles with like a little mini me.
It literally sounds like a Ted Lasso storyline. It is too perfect. I kind of want it. For all the reasons outlined of places that would not work for Spencer Rattler, bad fan base, SEC obviously being intense.
Bad fan base.
Oh, we saw.
Oh no, Bobby, don't.
Okay, no. That is not a hot take. We all
they know they're gonna lose. They have a passionate fan base.
It is a bad word choice. They are a passionate
Tennessee fan base.
Bad fan base in the sense that they're like they are passionate. They care, but the thing is, they care so damn much that they are like they're like the Millwall of college football at this point, where they're throwing stuff on the field. They had to shuffle their own cheerleaders out. Almost hit poor Lane Kiffin with a golf ball.
Poor Lane Kiffin.
If you want to know what Ohio State would look like if Ohio State was winning like 4 to 5 games a season, just perpetually with no end in sight, look at Tennessee.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can see that.
Here we go.
Anyways.
Oh, no, we got to get out of here.
No, we'll take on Ohio any day of the week.
Just the entire state of Ohio. Let's. I love it. Let's piss off Tennessee. That will go great. But again, they suck. So what are they going to do? Go get some more McDonald's bags to drop the bag to some recruits. Josh definitely needs it, but
he doesn't need more McDonald's.
No, he does not need more McDonald's. Again, Glass House can't throw stones, but that was very funny. Anyways, let's wrap this up. And I'm really worried. We've been going for a while. Let's preview Kansas. And that's our Kansas preview. It's Kansas, lads.
Bean time!
For real,
We're
though.
going to fight the Bean Man. And let me tell you something. The Bean Man did not have a good game last week. And has he ever really had a good game? Maybe once or twice this season. But I'm telling y'all, aren't you just a little bit deep down? I know we laugh, it's Kansas, but aren't you a little bit worried that the Bean Man might just kind of work us up and get a couple touchdowns and actually look pretty decent?
Like have a 7-7 first quarter where the Bean Man looks good,
And he's
leads
running
a long
all over
drive.
us.
Maybe there's we get a stop or something. That would be ugly.
People always forget because we usually clean it up in the second half, but if you look at the last 10 years, which sounds like a very long timeline, obviously. That's 5 years before Lincoln Riley as a head coach. But if you look at the last 10 years and go back and rewatch a lot of the Kansas games, you'll notice that at least half the time we have a really close, why the hell is it this close first half? In a lot of times. And I can't name the specific years, you guys might be able to, but there's at least 2 or 3 years that really stick out and exemplify that. But
Hurts year.
For some reason, we always come in really, really slow. Yeah, the Hurts year, and then I think maybe not the second Baker year, obviously. But
Baker's year was a little iffy. The year where we wore the all-white Rough Riders was a little iffy, but not that iffy.
That's those cursed uniforms.
They're not that cursed. Well, that's the only time we've worn the all creams, the full creamy, the 100% whole milks is what I refer to those specific uniforms as.
Let's wear them again.
Look, I actually like betting Kansas first quarter to cover. That would be fun. I think that could work.
What do you think it'd be? What do you think it'd be? 13.5?
Probably. I don't know. That is something to watch for because I don't know. 2 touchdowns might be too much. I don't know.
I really do think. I mean, I thought you were going to say this, Ty, but in the past years we always talk about mobile quarterbacks versus us, and especially with our secondary and our linebacking crew. Even though our linebackers did look better this week versus TCU, I'll give them that. It happens to help that Danny Stetson was playing better, and shout out to Sean White carrying level 12 on Madden. But it is a little bit concerning, but this guy has shown that he can make plenty of errors, and he's very turnover prone. And it might, just be the confidence boost that we need to see, some of these young guys that we were talking about, the 6'2" Josh Eaton getting a lot more snaps to that outside cornerback. Maybe throw Bryson Washington in the safety position because Delaren Turniel should not and would not be playing with this injury. See more of those guys, the guys that we were very excited to get, and haven't gotten enough run this year.
Yeah, I'm for it because we didn't really, other than Western Carolina, we didn't really get a lot of burn for those guys against Tulane. Didn't get any really against Nebraska. So I don't know. This is a good opportunity to reset and get new guys in. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's not really going to be much of a game. Kansas is bad.
I was going to say Kansas is OU's way to have I don't know their schedule off the top of my head this year, but Bama's mid to late season FCS game that they always play. Kansas is our way to essentially play that game, but also play the holier than thou card against Bama by saying we only play Power 5 FBS teams when it comes to after week 2, even though it's just Kansas.
Our trash is Power 5 trash.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm looking at the box score from the Texas Tech game.
41 unanswered.
I think did Jason Bean get benched, or when did? Because the backup quarterback for Kansas came in and threw 2 touchdowns. I want to be absolutely heartbroken if he's not the starting quarterback whenever we come trot on the field in Lawrence.
They scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute. So KU was getting shut out by Tech, a very bad Texas Tech, until the last minute where they just went off and got 14. So 41-14 looks bad, but it's somehow this game was somehow even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm reading some articles on recaps of it, and they said that Jason Bean could have thrown way more interceptions than he only threw 1, but it could have been bad. I really do hope he's the starter.
11 for 21, 80 yards, 1 pick, a 10.7 QBR. Oh, the Bean Man might need to he might need to get refried. That's tough.
All right, and that was the Schooner.
Yeah,
pod.
that might be it.
That was pretty bad, folks. But anyways, yeah. Well, that was the Schooner pod, everyone. Hopefully, we have a much less drama-filled week. Not going to be putting out 4 pods this week like we did last time. But you know what? I don't know. I'm looking forward to like a nice, easy game against KU. Yeah. So, anyways, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like this. If you liked our show, check us out on YouTube if you want to see the video version of this, as well as Football Feast, the show where I cook a regional specialty. Burnt ends were very good last week. And, of course, the Schooner simulation with Michael Whitman always does a fantastic job. Our TCU preview was very funny. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what comes out of the KU one, because honestly, I could see NCAA 14 Bean going off and, starting his Heisman, his Road to Glory campaign, which is something you actually did, didn't you, Jameson?
Yes, I was playing with the Bean Man, hoping I could win a Heisman with him, but his accuracy is so poor that like I would throw these little curl routes with him, and he just fly like right over into the safety so many times. Also, my controller on my PlayStation 3 is broken, and sometimes all of a sudden I'll be running and scrambling out, and then all of a sudden my quarterback just yeets it and pitches it back into like 10 yards back and fumbles it. So that would get really frustrating. I couldn't do it anymore. But I do know too much about that Kansas football team because I played a season with them. But yes, it'll be fun. I'm really excited to see what Whitman puts out because that TCU episode was really fun. We said that, go out and write reviews for this podcast. We will try to read them on air if we see any new ones. I saw that my wonderful girlfriend wrote something on our reviews. So I'm not going to say it out loud, but she gave us a 5-star review, and he said, okay, I'll just read it. He says, "What a great show. Jameson sounds so hot and he knows his sports. Please sign me up. Keep up the great work, boys." And she thought it was going to be anonymous where it wouldn't show her name.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, yeah. Totally an unbiased opinion there. I love it.
For the
sorry,
listeners.
you got exposed.
Another review.
I don't think any of our listeners will be calling me hot.
There you go.
I don't know, Jameson. You may have been too political there by reading that review.
I'm
still trying to track down.
I've never called. No one has ever called me in the history of Jameson political. So I don't.
Bobby
think
is. Bobby's our resident.
I don't
political person.
I still don't know where that's from.
I don't know where that came from, and it's like the first one was like maybe kind of like
I think you have to
decent
update.
criticism.
You gotta
right?
update the listeners.
And he updated it.
You gotta update the listeners because this is stuff that we haven't talked about.
I don't want to give him too much attention, but we got a particularly tough review. Mainly that bashed us.
Only non-5-star review, so please go wash out this guy's non-5-star review.
Yeah,
go give us that 5-star if you haven't already.
Yeah, it was like the first one was like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Like maybe a little, like definitely a little too intense, like maybe a bit mean. Said he was not going to waste his time with anymore, and then he updates his review and refers to me as political. And I don't know what I said, like politics wise, but yeah, I will say Delarian Turner yelled for president. So
yeah, the gamer ski, reach out to us if you got any things you want to
come on the pod, gamer ski.
Yeah, if you want to say something, just tell us what we want to fix and we'll listen to you.
Hey, if you can do better, let's see what
I'm
you
not
got.
being combative. I legitimately want if anyone listening is saying like, hey, is there anything that we can make us better? Do it. Send us all your feedback. But if you're giving us a review on iTunes, how about you just keep it 5 stars for us?
Yeah.
But if you have something, say it to us in our DMs. We will be happy to hear it.
I appreciate him wasting his time with listening again. So keep wasting your time, because really, honestly, at this point, all of you are wasting your time listening to us. But that's okay. No, they're not.
We are enlightening. We are enlightening and wonderful.
After all, we're pretty much the only.
Apparently, most of our listeners just listen for Jameson's sexy voice. So
Wait.
I should
Do we need to
have
do
read
like?
that. I have this.
Do we need to
the
start
farthest thing.
some ASMR, like an ASMR thing on the Schooners
I have
channel?
the farthest thing from a sexy voice. My voice is not like, it's not podcast voice. Like some people have great podcast voice, and like I listen to some sports podcasts, and I'm like, this guy does not know his sports that well, but he's only on here because he has a beautiful voice, and he just sounds great, and he's just a good host. That is not me. I mean, I would no offense to y'all too, but none of us have the beautiful voice.
no, I agree. Yeah.
No, we do not have good voices at all.
Bobby at least knows like the specific things to say. Like he's kind of researched like how to be on a podcast. I just kind of zone out half the time.
I don't even know if I really researched. I just kind of go for it. But anyways,
No,
I'm
we
sure
have
our
three
dear
established
listeners.
rules.
I'm sure our dear listeners are probably tired of hearing about us talk about ourselves. But anyways, thank you all so much for listening. We'll catch y'all later in the week when we have the weekend spread, making our picks. What a garbage week of college football we have ahead of us, actually. But that's okay. It's some time to relax and do some painting or something. Anyways,
Interesting.
no, I just got a house. I have to do painting. I have to paint some
Gotcha.
stuff.
It's
But anyways,
just us talking about ourselves some more.
I know, I love it. You just a little peel back the curtain. I'm sure you all have wondered. What do they do in their personal lives? Actually, no, you probably haven't, because for the most part, you all know us in real life. But anyways, yeah, that's it for this podcast. I've drug it out way too long, as is tradition. We will catch y'all next time. Have a good one. Boomer Sooner.